What a headline. Nobody in our lifetime expected to see this. An American Pope. And here's the Wall Street Journal. And again, their view of it, again, just absolutely incredible. First Pope from U.S. elected. Willie, Jack was at school and asking, they were watching everything, and he said, well, who are the possibilities? And I sent him 5 possibilities. I sent him 5. I said, look for these 5 cardinals as possibilities. There was one more that the New York Times had put in there, and it was actually the Pope that actually became Pope Leo. But I said, I'm not going to waste his time with an American Pope. There is no way the Cardinals will ever elect someone from America. And then it was an extraordinarily epic day, not because he's from America, but it was such a shock. And also because this is a Pope who actually has read the red letters of the Gospels and lives by them, believes in them, that Jesus said, he's for everyone. He is especially for the poor and the needy and those without hope. It is the church of Jesus Christ that is supposed to bring hope to the hopeless, feed the poor, give water to the thirsty. And it happened yesterday, against all odds, really, an American Pope.
Yeah, extraordinary. And the conventional wisdom was this would not be the choice, for good reason, because obviously there's never been an American Pope, for all the reasons we've talked about over the last several weeks, that it's viewed as too much concentration of power for one country in the world. But there, when the curtains parted and the door opened on St. Peter's balcony, there walked out a man from Chicago, grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, a White Sox fan, as confirmed by his brother yesterday. Did, as we heard there a minute ago, go to Villanova, class of 1977. His brother reports that he does the Wordle every day on the New York Times. He's, to put it short, one of us, and now he is the Holy Father. So, Chris Jansing, we all were glued to the coverage yesterday. You were on the air. You were in the anchor chair when Pope Leo stepped out onto that balcony, shocked the world, and then riveted and excited America that our country now has its Pope.
It's extraordinary. I had spent quite a bit of time during the funeral for Pope Francis talking to folks in Rome, insiders, many of whom mentioned him, but always after saying why he would make a great pope, ended to a person with, but he's an American, which brings us to what has now become a famous quote, that he's the least American of the American cardinals. But I think there's a lot more than that to him, right? He is somebody who bridges a lot of different divides. Yes, he's an American, brought up the way a lot of young priests were in a Catholic household, was an altar boy. In fact, there's a great story about how his friends' moms, when they were in grade school, said he will be the first American Pope. They said that 50 years ago. So maybe moms, as usual, know something. But he was also the head of the dicastery of bishops, which is a very powerful position. It appoints. It recommends the appointment of bishops, and that is essentially saying he's the guy who looked at and determined in many ways who would lead the church into the future. Now he is ultimately the one who is going to lead it into the future. And I was listening just before I came out here. He's saying his first Mass right now at the Sistine Chapel. And first of all, can we talk about how shocking it is to hear a pope speak English, maybe tinged with a little bit of South Side in it? And he said, when he was going to make his homily, he said, I'm going to start just very briefly before going into Italian, speaking in English. And he said, you have called me to carry the cross. I'm humbled to carry out the mission. And he asked for the help of cardinals. He has got a big cross to bear, a divided church, a huge financial crisis. Obviously, the wars in Gaza. He's had things to say about Russia and Ukraine, criticizing Russia, and then all the social issues we've talked about. But I think the world kind of took a breath when he came out onto that loggia and saw in him somebody very relatable, speaks 5 languages, and as you pointed out, is a deeply learned man in the gospel, somebody who has his master's degree in that. Before, you know, he also had undergrad in math and canon law for his PhD. So somebody who's facing a lot, but seems very calm in knowing what's ahead of him.
Yeah, just remarkable, Chris. Your coverage yesterday of an event that was just epic. And Jon Meacham, you know, we are so often left dizzy with just a barrage of images that assault us every day, so much so that pretty soon they all seem to blur together and we become numb by it all. Yesterday afternoon, watching what unfolded yesterday in Rome, I was struck by how many people I spoke with who just said, this was different. This was a remarkable event. It was epic, possibly an era-defining moment that we were witnessing, not because he is an American, though that certainly adds much drama and much shock to it all, but because this is a man who has devoted his life to serving the poor and is going to devote his papacy to speaking up for the poor, speaking up for the immigrant, speaking up for those that Jesus said we are supposed to focus on first, not the powerful, but the hungry, the thirsty, those without clothes, those left without hope. And this is a pope, and you could tell even by the name that he chose, that has decided he will follow, at least in this area, in Francis's footsteps, and will follow the words of Jesus Christ in the Gospels.
He's also an Augustinian. That's his religious order. And one of the phrases, one of the many remarkable phrases that come to us through translation from St. Augustine, one of the great fathers of the church, is that something can be ever ancient and ever new. And I think that's part of what was going on with the people you were talking to, is when there is an election like this, when there's a moment like this, where there's a new figure in the most ancient of settings, it is renewing. And there's something at once reassuring about the stability, the long chain from St. Peter to a White Sox fan. I don't think we've said this, but anybody who's a White Sox fan clearly is a person of faith. So that's an important thing, I think, to note. If you'd been a Yankees fan, probably would have been overweening pride. No, and so you can't do that story, really. But I think that's part of what's we're sensing is the pageantry, the powerful imagery is something that puts us all in the mind of tradition. You know, and tradition means handing on. It means something that has existed and been handed on, but with an infusion of something new and not necessarily different, but fresh. And the only other point I'd make is, I say this as a Protestant, one of the points of faith is that it is an outward and visible sign. This is what a sacrament is defined as, an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace. And so what you see does matter. A manifestation, you know, an embodiment of something that becomes visible but is invisible. And, you know, William James once said that God is real because he has real effects. I used to argue to agnostic and atheist friends that one could believe in God on the same evidence one believes in love. It's an invisible force with visible effects. And I think that a lot of this drama is what's unfolding as Leo XIV begins what could be a long papacy. He's, in relative terms, he's a young guy, right? He's 69.
We're looking at live pictures on the left side of your screen there. That is inside the Sistine Chapel, as Chris said, Pope Leo XIV delivering his first Mass as Pope.